What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back to another video. This will be a bit of a generic recent vinyl finds pickups. Now, admittedly, since I'm not very good at doing this type of stuff, some of these go back end of 2023. So I'm going to advertise it as a recent thing, so it's a little bit more evergreen. Because I realized there's a lot of records I've kind of gotten over the last couple months that I never actually showed. I might have showed a couple of them on a live stream or something, so you might have seen those, and I apologize if you came here for something different and you didn't get what you wanted. I was going back and I was like, shoot, I don't think I shared a lot of these. So I'll break this up into multiple parts. A lot of cool stuff, some classic rock, some other stuff, and a bit of a grail. So hopefully that's... well, minor grail, I guess, depending on your definition, but hopefully that's whatever clickbait will get me millions of views, but probably not. Man, I have this YouTube channel. I can't stop drinking beer. It's wild. So, I'll show you 10 records. These 10, again, kind of all over the map. Some of them go into what I was bringing in at the end of last year. So. Apologies if you've seen them or if not, but I'll try to get through these quickly and hopefully not make this video too damn long. So, coming in hot, number 1, a band that I've always really loved and respected greatly, appreciated. They've kind of gotten some flack over the years, probably because of some personnel. I don't know. They've almost become the band that's been cool to hate. I don't really get why. I think they're incredible, and especially everything up to this album. I mean, you could argue they've always been great, but to me, this is always a great album that I don't see out in the stores that much, and when I do see it and it's the right price, I'm going to grab it. So, finally added Rattle and Hum from U2 to the collection. So, yeah, 1988, so, kind of towards the end of the vinyl era-ish. But yeah, kind of double album, soundtrack album, some live stuff, some great studio stuff. Obviously, Desire was huge on here. When Love Comes to Town was on here. Angel of Harlem. My personal favorite is how the whole thing closes off the second side, or at the fourth side. All I Want Is You. Beautiful song. Always have loved that song. And you know what? I think their covers on here are pretty damn good. I think when I saw that they did Helter Skelter, I was like, I don't know about that. I got no complaints. I thought they did it justice. I thought they did it great. So yeah, first one, Rattle and Hum from U2. Excellent. This next one's completely different. Early, of course at this point we're talking late 60s into the early 70s. Kind of became a little bit of a Canterbury / jazz fusion band, but their first 2 albums are very different than what came later for them. And I'm talking about the band Soft Machine. Now, I have their second record, Soft Machine 2, I think it's just called. It could be, I think so. Their first one's hard to find because, of course, there's multiple covers. There's an uncensored cover. I want the uncensored cover. I'm looking at probably a $100 bill to get that Soft Machine debut. That's when they were a little bit more quirkier, psychedelic pop, little rock and roll. I love that stuff. After the third record, they went straight free jazz for a couple of records and then went a little bit more fusion-y, all that type of stuff. But the first 2 are great. So this was a cool find because this is one of those twofers that came a couple years later. So this is just called The Soft Machine. Wacky ass cover there. But this is one of the 2-4s that includes their first 2 albums. So again, I already had the second, so the second's great. But I did not have the first because again, it's a bit of an expensive and rare record. So this 2-4 includes both of them. This was put out in 73. Forget the label that they put on here. Command. Originally they were released on Probe, I think, which is an ABC affiliate. So yeah, the first 2 Soft Machine records I think are super cool. Again, late 60s, poppy, proggy, psychedelic. Super quirky British stuff, and then after that, they get a little bit crazier. But yeah, very cool compilation, including the first 2 Soft Machine records here. This is the Soft Machine. Something completely different. These are in no order, so I'm just like, oh, Jesus, what's coming next? I was waiting for this to be reissued for a long time. I think a lot of other fans were too. This is a band from Sweden that's gone through a lot of different lineup changes and a lot of different sounds over the years. They began as a pretty punishing death metal with black metal influences in the early to mid 90s. By the late 90s and into the mid 2000s, they were just a punishing progressive death metal band. And over the last, 15 or so years at this point, they've completely gotten rid of all the death metal vocals, the Cookie Monster, the growls, all that kind of stuff. And they've gone completely more progressive hard rock. At this point in the career, this was an interesting one. This came out in 2003, so still right at the heat of sort of their death metal era. But they put a record out called Damnation, and this is Opth. Record out called Damnation, I believe in 2003, that sort of freaked some people out because, again, they were coming in as like a pretty punishing death metal, progressive metal band, and they put this out that had zero death growls, was a soft, laid-back, depressing, fall weather vibing record. And I think people have grown to love it. And I think they loved it then, but it was just so different from everything else they were doing. This, of course, was part of the Steven Wilson project, or Steven Wilson production partnership that they had. So Steven Wilson produced this record. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those, again, I've been waiting for it to be reissued for a long time. I'm glad it finally was. Yeah, I guess 20th anniversary Damnation. So yeah, great record from Opeth, one of my favorites. No death metal growls, just good, depressing, progressive rock. So great stuff. This next one is part of the, I guess, reissue campaign. The label would be Ridin' Easy Records, but this was a partnership for an exclusive pressing or color variant through Noble Records. Dylan down at Noble Records, I get a handful of this stuff. I don't get everything. It's usually things I feel really specific about, but I wanted to pick up this one. This is Gary Del Vecchio, Buzzin'. The cool part about this is that Gary Del Vecchio is an Ohio boy. He's from Bellaire, Ohio, which is right on sort of the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania, heading towards Pittsburgh. I believe Buzzin' was a single that was released back in the early 70s. But this record, as it sits, was never actually released on vinyl. So this was the first time it was released, which is super awesome. And again, if they say the great quote here, Ohio was a hotbed for for hard rock bands at the time. Bands like James Gang, Glassheart, Poobah, Left Hand, Damnation of Adam Blessing. What you get here matches the style of any of those bands. This is awesome. It's on a cool sort of reddish marbled. Let's see if that comes in. Yeah, it does. Looks pretty cool. So yeah, Ridin' Easy Records, part of their Brown Acid series. You might have seen that out there. Really good early 70s Ohio hard rock though. Another super cool album cover here. This is I would be surprised if anybody knows this, especially if there's some prog nerds out there. If you know this, awesome. But this is a band, I believe, out of Denmark. I don't even know what else more to say about them. This was sort of a semi-grail of mine that I've been looking for a while, but this is a band called Moron Police. This is a record called Boat on the Sea. Progressive, poppy, weird, quirky. First of all, look at this album cover, though. I mean, how awesome is that, huh? Awesome stuff. This was only pressed in Denmark to a limited quantity. I had it on my want list for a while. Finally, a price came through on Discogs that I wanted to get a sealed one, and I was able to get it. Unfortunately, the pressing sounds like garbage, but I'm okay with it. I listened to the hell out of this record a couple years ago. They showed up somewhere, I think on the Prog Report, or doing some kind of show, and they blew me away. And I listened to this album so much over the last couple of years that to finally get it on vinyl and for a good price, yeah, because it was like up there for like $100 and some. I was like, no way. But super cool. I still can't get over that album cover though. How awesome is that? So yeah, Moron Police, Boat on the Sea. All right, a lot of people know this one, so I won't go too much into it. I showed this on a couple of streams, but this is cool to add to the collection because I think it was out of print for a while, but that's Rush's end of career masterpiece, in my opinion, Clockwork Angels. I almost said Clockwork Oranges. That would be good, wouldn't it? Clockwork Angels. I mean, this is an incredible way to end a career. I think this was almost 10 years ago now. What, 2014 this was? Outstanding, kind of hard rock, progressive metal almost. Heavy album, but just absolutely killer. And so stoked to have this in the collection. This was picked up towards the end of last year as well. But very cool. You know, somebody that I've always wanted to get more and listen to more of is Sid Barrett, right? We have the first Pink Floyd album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which is overwhelmingly a Sid Barrett record. And he's got those two solo records, but they're hard to find, they're rare, they're expensive, all that kind of stuff. But this was put out, I think actually it was like produced by, it might have been produced by David Gilmour actually. But this was put out a couple years ago, and this is a comp called An Introduction to Sid Barrett. So this is a double disc or a double LP, kind of walking through his Floyd stuff on the early stuff, and then obviously the stuff that ended up later on Mad Clap Laughs and Barrett, his self-titled, and then some other stuff that didn't end up on either, some unreleased stuff. So this was a really cool listen. Again, some of the stuff, even from that first Floyd record, US didn't get. It was only on the UK version and other types of stuff. So yeah, I think I grabbed this off Amazon at the time. It was one of those steals for like $16 or something. So really excited to have this and dive a little bit more into Sid Barrett, somebody that just probably needs a little bit more love. So for some people might know, well, all of you know David Bowie. David Bowie has kind of an interesting story because his actual debut record, the first one he put out back in 1967, was kind of like a psychedelic folky record. I mean, it was like more in lines of like, Donovan / Tyrannosaurus Rex before they became T-Rex. I mean, very quirky. I think he later sort of disowned that. He's like, that is not my era. I don't know. Like, that's not my thing. Don't call it my debut. And then his second record was also called David Bowie. But obviously getting a hold of that actual debut is like a mega grail worth $1 billion, right? But this was a cool comp that I had never seen before. And again, a record label taking advantage of somebody's fame and putting out something later to make it affordable for people like me and people like you. So there's that. I'd never seen this, but I was really excited for it. This is David Bowie Images, 1966 to 1967. Another double LP, which includes his entire actual debut, again, that more psychedelic, folkier type stuff, and then a whole bunch of additional B-sides, singles, and all that type of stuff that was never released. I was nervous going into this because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but I actually really ended up liking this a lot. Definitely, you can tell it's David, but yeah, obviously he would change so much. But yeah, I'd never seen this out there, and I thought, what a cool way to still own the physical copy of that early stuff without having to pay $1 billion to get it. So yeah, Images, 1966, 1967. This was put out on London Records here in the US. 1973, of course, right at the sort of when he was nearing the tops, right? Let's see here. One more. I had been looking for this record forever. I don't think it's ever been reissued. I'm like waiting for it to be reissued. Like it just isn't. And it was one that I was missing from the collection for a long time. And that's Ooh La La from the Faces. Was ecstatic to find this, for those people out there that like, well, yeah, some cool, weird stuff going on there. But, in good shape. Usually this, because of the cover, everything's a little bit wonky, but this is actually in pretty good shape, and the disc is in really good shape as well. But yeah, obviously the most famous on here was the title track that wasn't even sung by sheesh, why am I forgetting his name? My God, Rod Stewart. We don't edit here, it's fine. So yeah, I mean, such an incredible song, great album, just that good old-fashioned, dirty, old school kind of drunken barroom rock and roll, which is so great. But I rarely see this out in stores, and so I was really excited to find it. And then last, but certainly not least, this is sort of like a semi-grail, not an overly expensive record, but still worth probably $60-$70 or so. I'm a Ronnie James Dio fan. Love Dio the band. I loved his work with Black Sabbath. Loved his work in Rainbow, but well before Rainbow, he was in a band, his first band, called Elf. Yeah, so this is the Elf debut, 1972. On Epic. For the pressing nerds out there, the original first pressing is on the yellow Epic. The second pressing, to know that you got a reissue or repressing of it, was right when Epic moved to the orange. So yellow Epic is that first, orange Epic is that second from 73. But yeah, you can tell it's Ronnie singing. I mean, it sounds like Ronnie. It's pretty heavy, it's hard rock, but it's also kind of a boogie record. I mean, it's like very different than what ended up, obviously, he got into later. But yeah, this was sort of most of the band that would end up making up Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. That first album was basically Ritchie and then Ronnie and his band from Elf for the most part, with some changes. So cool record, great find, really excited to have this. A cool fun fact that I appreciate about this that some people don't know is actually on The sleeve, this was before he was Ronnie James Dio, right? So on the sleeve, he is known, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, as Ronald Padavona. And he actually plays bass and sings on this as well. And he had once said, because his Italian heritage was so strong with his parents, that he wanted to make sure that that Italian name showed up on a sleeve when he was finally recording records. And so, yeah, he's not Ronnie James Dio at this point. He's Ronald Padavona. And I think that's kind of a badass story. So, yeah, there are my quick 10 for you. Again, there'll be more videos of these coming. I just don't want to make them too long. This one's probably already too long as it is, but that's okay. Yeah, let me know if you got these records, what you think of them, any questions. Take care, drink PBR, and yeah, listen to records. Cheers, y'all.